Welcome to Stories in Cyber, the ISACA New Jersey podcast. Founded in 1969, ISACA, which at the time stood for the Information Systems Audit and Control Association, has been a global force dedicated to advancing the realms of information governance, risk management, and cybersecurity. Here's the thing, ISACA is more than just a global organization. It's a global community, and we're not just a name. We're a network of like-minded professionals consisting of local chapters with tailored resources that empower individuals and businesses. So whether you're working for Chase Bank in Newark or work at Danske Bank in Denmark, you are not too far from the support and opportunities that ISACA chapters can provide. In this episode, we want to dive into what you can expect from Stories in Cyber and give you a glimpse into our podcast mission. We'll share our goals, introduce to you our fascinating guests, and provide a sneak peek at the topics we'll explore in the episodes to come. So with that said, let's get started.
Hello and welcome back to Stories in Cyber, an ISAC New Jersey podcast. Today with us again, we have me, Evgeny Baranovsky, a student of cybersecurity and a compliance project manager for a high-tech internet company. As well, we have Kervin Velasco, a GRC evangelist in SaaS products, and Adnan Rafique, who's going to be the topic of our conversation today. He's an Infosec thought leader in enterprise health insurance, working within the office of the CISO. Well, guys, hello, welcome. How's everybody feeling?
It's good.
Pretty good.
Perfect. So, Adnan, today you are the topic of the podcast. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, that's one of those questions I hate the most to speak myself. Just give you for the audience to know a little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for a long time, since the start of the dot-com boom. I started my career into various areas of technology. I've seen those time from software development, as I said, the dot-com boom and rise and downfall of that. I'm a lead adopter for cloud. I started my cloud journey back in 2011ish, but I was exposed to Microsoft Virtual Hyper-V back in 2007 and 8, and I used to do a lot of events in Dubai. So I lived in 3 different countries, and I was from one of the group there back in days for the community work. So that was an amazing experience. So kind of journey developed, and when I started my journey in the cloud, working for some retail, I worked for companies who made online payments and all that. So kind of building my journey towards, and always have the curiosity, right? Why things we do it the way we do it? Is there a better way? So when I started my cloud journey, I always had this question even more, because the landscape and everything was changing. And then I got into opportunity work into highly regulated environment. And this is where I got into the Infosec overall. Yeah, so I'll just take a pause, and if you have further questions.
How long ago was that you kind of pivoted to Infosec?
Yeah, so it's a 2 answer, right? So it's not something so if I go back early in my career, I used to study IP tables on Linux, which I give you a background, like Cisco ASA and Palos. There's an open source IP tables if you just go and look it up. And so I was that, like, how these firewalls work, like back early days, IDS and IPS even did not exist. The Infosec, when I got working with Big Four and some of the large data center, we have some customer into regulated environment. So this is where I was like, when I was working with those people on the call, and they were concerned about particular data type and metadata, and about the mailboxes and what file types are sensitive. And that's really helped me, how these giant, large, Titanic companies work, right? And that's amazing. And since then, I kept on learning and learning.
I think our audience has to a little bit understand, because oftentimes people, I think, confuse cybersecurity and infosec. Can you explain a little bit the difference
Yeah,
between it?
that's my favorite question, and
Yeah.
I wanted to. So it's going to take a little bit more time. So people who are interested, you may want to pay attention and understand it, because if you look at today, everything's a buzzword: cybersecurity everywhere. There are pros and there are cons. There are different areas: red teaming, blue teaming, security operations, you name it, security architecture. But if you go and talk to a layman, cybersecurity is always about hacking type of thing, and you're defending against it, those kind of thing. And if you look at all small business size and medium, cybersecurity, end of the day, is all about operations. Hey, this is my data. How do I protect me? This is my company. How do I protect it? That's, in a nutshell, cybersecurity is. And pretty much in most of the cases, it works. It makes the most business sense, because I'm not going to go into the conversation as of now, like the dollar budget and companies' priorities and the risk and all that. That's a totally different game. On the other side of the industry, the whole different industry, where they have to do with regulations. They have to deal with personal identifiable information, health information, PI, PHI data, credit card processing. So that's a whole different sector. So I'm into the health. I work for Big Fours and all that. So they have different requirements. So basically, end of the day, the business requirements. And those requirements do not necessarily exist as small businesses or medium sized, because they don't have to deal with that. So if you're looking for mature practices, this is the whole information security program that to be have a governance around that. So if you look at the office of the CISO in a large enterprise, cybersecurity runs under that. And they have legal, they have compliance and audit, enterprise risk management, that's under the CISO, right? So if you look at cybersecurity, maybe contributing 20-25% of that operations. Then you have governance and policies, you have compliance, you have enterprise risk management. So that CISO office does not really, you would not see in any small organization, maybe one people or a team of 5 pretty much doing that, because end of the day, it's a business. Every business has different requirement. So that's, people need to understand the difference between a cybersecurity and infosec is different. Infosec, in a layman term, is just about policies and procedures. GRC is part of that, is a very integral piece of that. So that's important. And there are a lot of opportunity, which we'll talk about later in this podcast. So stay tuned.
I like that you mentioned the part about operations, and actually a question popped into my head about the role that ISACA, the organization, plays when it comes to companies and the way they structure their operations. How does ISACA help these companies when they approach the organization for help?
Yeah, very good question. So if you look at ISACA, ISACA is known for audit. Okay, and ISACA lately have come up with some more specific certifications to the operations. But by nature, by the history, ISACA more of an audit, more of a very structured organizational level thing. And if you look at the people in the ISACA, most of them you'll find their career profile: information security officer, risk manager, auditors. You'll not see somebody blue teamer or red teamer.
So is it
Very
like
true. So
you,
true.
so is
Yeah,
it like you contact Isaka, hey, look, I have a company that's scaling, we're growing fast. We
yeah.
want to be on top of our cybersecurity. Is the organization going to suggest how I should structure my company?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. ISACA has all those things. If you look at the C risk, which I talked in a previous podcast, there's the whole risk management that talks about it. There is enterprise governance certification, CGIT, which is not security, it's a CIO level certification track they have. So those at the business level, top level, leadership level decision you have to make. Then comes the multiple layers. How do I structure my security operation? Do I really need it? Incident response, do I manage it internally, or do I need to outsource it? What companies are doing about privacy and AI issues? That ISACA has a lot of application. So if you really need the directions in the industry, ISACA, I mean, is one of the best resources for sure.
So I do want to talk more about you, and I think that this topic that we just talked about is going to be something we could talk about in the future. I really want to dive into it. It's really interesting to me, and I think it's important to share with the audience about what the organization does exactly. But that's the gist of it, right?
Yeah.
Um, cool. Where do you currently work?
Yeah. So I work for one of the largest health insurance provider here in US. I'm based out of Jersey, and so being in health insurance, in the health, this is a highly regulated environment. And I work for the
Mhm.
office of the CISO. I wear multiple hats, but in a nutshell, I'm part of our Infosec governance or security
Okay.
governance group,
So
which is very
info,
niche itself, and very few companies
right?
have that group. So that's very exciting job, very challenging. I love it because every time you get to get challenged and
Mhm.
explore a lot of new stuff. So I can talk more about it if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into that, can you also tell me about? I know that you run a podcast of your own, and you have
Yeah,
a social media presence going on.
yeah,
Can you tell us more about that?
yeah. So before I talk about it, I want to give you some background and history. As I spoken in the beginning, I used to run communities, so I've been doing it back as far as if I can go back 2006, and I was in Dubai, and I used to do blogging. This is how I started. And then I started working with Microsoft Middle East in Dubai, and they hosted many of or sponsored my events. They launched Microsoft SQL Server 2007 Roadshow. I was part of that, and I worked with them, and I built my community from myself to 400 registered member. So I used to do a lot of those things, and I've been nominated the best speaker of the year from IEEE UAE. I used to speak even back then, and I used to bring experts even in my events. It's the same concept podcast, but on a physical level. Bring them. We used to do PowerShell exercise and labs and all that. So that was like exciting experience for me, and always helped me keep on top of the technology. And then I
Yeah.
was part of British Computer Society chartered member also. That's like a phenomenal experience. And then after that, there was a gap between 2011ish to I would say 15ish or 16, depending. And then I realized, okay, things have changed, and how do I get back into the game? And that's why I got started looking into the more of a social media and say, okay, I wanted to leverage. Then I put up my YouTube channel on the social media. One of the following I have in TikTok, 12,000 followers, but I don't have the same following on Instagram. So it depends. I started my podcast going back to a question. That's on YouTube. And the idea is that the podcast was very unique in the nature
Mhm.
because I bring either my friends who I have been working with them. So we talk about actually how does it really feel in the fields. Basically, if I'm talking to an Azure architect, that person is really an Azure architect for the 15 years, so he
Yeah.
knows the best. If somebody
Yeah.
who's working on security and who's a world Finland's top security tutor, he's known all over Finland. So he's in my podcast and he's talking about all those things. So these people are really do it day to day. So that's the content I think you'll find in my podcast, other than any other podcast.
Well, listen. First of all, I just want to say that I appreciate you and people like you who put out content that has to
Thank
do
you.
with technology and all the different topics. It's a very big field. Because I'm an avid researcher myself, even just going on YouTube and watching these extraordinary talks with extraordinary people who share their knowledge. Um, and it sounds like you have been passionate about technology for a long time. So when is it that you got involved with ISACA, the organization?
Yeah. So it's like a pretty much I would say 3 years just before COVID, and I was like, okay, I have this much information and all that. So how do I make sure I have to have credentials? I had CISSP in front of me, and CISSP also launched a cloud security related certification, SCCP, I believe. And when I looked at ISACA, they have CGIT, which is more of a CIO, like a business top level, and then CISM, and they also have some CISA. So based on experience and everything, and I've gone through all these, and I was okay, system is something help me grow further for a long term because I'm a person. I have done enough hands-on experience, and I want to be focusing more on the business side of it. a person who understands the business need and has a lot of background in the technology, like enterprise architecture. I can work with software developer, you name it. So how do I do that and massage it? And CISM, I think, did a great job. The reason I say that, because I took all the official curriculum, I bought that, I spent the money from my pocket, out of pocket, right? So I took all the official curriculum. Kervin would know, and I guess we are talking about 3K more or less, and I put more than 3 months effort. And certification, you can do it, but if you go through the material, the case studies that I loved the most, that the thought process, the thinking changes, like a typical engineer would think, you have to go and fix it. No, step back.
Yeah.
What's the problem is being asked? Don't just go for the solution. So that's like really helped me when I looked into that. And again, just for the CISM, and then I did it. And they were like, how do I need to get connected with the like-minded people, the community? And then I joined ISACA, and I'm still a current member. And yeah, it's an amazing investment.
So
Sorry, like you mentioned that CISM specifically was like a certification that you felt was more strategic, more business focused, and like for someone who came, like you mentioned, you when you follow a problem or you're trying to solve a problem as like a technical person, you're like direct to the solution, versus a
Yeah,
business person is like, what's the problem? That's
yeah,
exactly what business people would do. Like, what is the problem? Because defining that will define what are the possible possibilities of fixing it. What are the goals associated? How does it attain business value? And for you as someone who has, like, I feel like you have a lot of experience across the board, whether it be strategic or very technical. Um, how does that play out into your daily role in the office of the CISO for this large health insurance company, right?
yeah,
Is it oftentimes you're talking to business people, or is it oftentimes you're talking to technical leads?
yeah. So I have so many stories, right?
Yeah.
So let me try which will make the most sense. And very good question, because these kind of questions we wanted to have in our podcast. So put me as a subject. It can be anybody, right? In this role and situation with this experience in the technology, and how does it help? So often, as I said, even our previous podcasts, cybersecurity, Infosec is all about communication, is understanding the needs. I cannot go just to a developer or a Palo Alto engineering team or platform engineer. Hey, why you have this ports open or block these ports? We need to allow this port, for example, on the firewall, or whichever the policies. No, you have to have a legitimate business need. Or if there are some best practices, right? So you need to understand, and you have to have the context. Sometimes you get pushed back, and this is where my tons of experience helped me, because I understand the technology, all along those lines. I don't, so that's, I know how to work with them. And even I'm on the call, I tell, hey, I know where you're coming from, because I used to be the same guy who used to coach. No, we're doing the best. Because what can go wrong if you do not ask in a right way, you may then think they are not doing their job right. It could be offensive, which is not right. They're doing the best. They are the best talented people. So how do you make sure, hey, from the best practices, and then you have to talk in that and get the job done. And there is always a way to get it done. However, on the business side, always, if you look at IT security products, I can give you some example, not the vendor name, anything. So business want to push the products out in the market ASAP.
Yeah.
If you become a security blocker, you're not making them happy. They may lose their deadlines, budget, time to market. So how do you make sure? So the thought process comes there, risk. How are you going to evaluate the risk? So you have to change your mindset, not thinking a typical engineering guy, and look at the business need. Hey, and then you talk about what's the risk. Okay, I think this is a very high risk item. You should consider. You have 3 items. Okay, let's talk about what we can fix it first. I think this is the highest one. Do you agree? So that's kind of conversation you have to work with the business, which is more soft skills involved. Communication is the key. Risk awareness, risk education is very important. So now it's them on the business side to make a decision. So you're not a roadblocker, but you build that trust relationship, you bring your experience, you tell them, hey, why do you think the way they think may go wrong? And that's just a one example. Like, it changes in every project, in every platform you put it on premises versus hybrid versus in the cloud. It's a SaaS model, it's a PaaS model, it's an infrastructure as a service model. It is different. I hope that helps.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about like this relationship, so someone who might be starting off right in their career, um, how does it like impact the need to build a community to the business versus having the more harder skills like understanding networking or understanding the deployment of clouds for Microsoft Azure? Like what in your person for someone starting off, which is more valuable?
You mean the
Understanding the
career
hard
point of view?
skills? Yeah, the career point of view. As is it more the
Yeah.
soft skills should be more important, or should it be the more hard skills more important?
Yeah. So again, first need to understand where they want to see themselves. As say cybersec and infosec are not the same. If you're someone who like to develop, play around mass and want to have a more of a hard skills, let's say, hey, you have to look into the profile like red teaming, blue teaming, security operations, right?
Yeah.
So in that area, the hard skills are important because think of this: people want to pay you whether you have a college degree or not. Hey, come and fix the firewalls. Deploy me 4 Palo Alto firewall, or deploy me Prisma Cloud, for example, right? So these are the hard skills you will go as a consultant, individual contributor. You go get the job done, and that's it. And then you move to a new customer, a new customer, a new customer. So you become a product specialist. This is where you need to have a hard skill. Infosec is totally different. You don't need that hard skill as long as you're good to know, hey, what's a firewall? What's the application web app proxy? How does the reverse proxy work? How does SAST and dash scanning work? You're not doing it, but you know good enough to talk about it. And then Infosec is basically will direct you to a framework, whether it's NIST 853 or Cloud Security Alliance or ISO 27001 or SOC, you name it. So you have to learn that piece as well. And then communication and soft skill is the key. So if you look at 3, 4, 25% each, but technology still, I would give them 35 and reduce 10% from one of those areas. But you're not doing it, but you need to know good enough to understand the technology. Because if you're customer facing, if you don't know something, the piece of advice, don't just misguide them. Tell them, hold on, I have to go back, do my homework, and I can come back to you in a couple of days. That's the best way you have to do it, because this will help you build a better and good trust relationship.
Nice. So we're approaching a wrap up point, and I'd love to ask you a ton more questions, but maybe we can leave off with would you have some advice for somebody starting out in the cybersecurity or infosec career?
Yeah, as today, I think I'm a strong believer what you want to achieve in the shortest and quickest time, because ton of information available. So I let people to think about themselves instead of me advising, right? But I'll give the tip. If you're going for a cybersecurity, you're going to compete with people in the industry for 15, 20 years. They already know Cisco SA firewalls. They know Cisco Duo for identity. They are the Palo firewall engineers, the smartest brain. And along those technologies, I'm saying router and switching and everything. And they will tell you, go learn CCNA. In my dictionary, forget the CCNA. People may not like it when I'm saying it here in the public. I'll say, go learn about identity and access management. Go and learn about application security. So you will have less competition, less people. Nobody is, you find in the market, have 18, 20 years experience in this area in identity. Identity is 7, 8 years old. So people like me, I cannot say I have 20 years in identity. I can say like Active Directory and all that, but technically in AWS and Azure, whichever you name it. So I would strongly recommend, if you really want to have a good career, look into cloud security. This is your perimeter defense, is not firewall, is identity, and build on top of that.
Nice. I love that advice because I always look for things of how to pitch my own friends how to get into the industry, and they're asking me like maybe how or why. And that's a good freaking reason to say this industry is not that old. You could still come out and be one of the most experienced people in the decade.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys more and more. Kerwin, did you want to say something or ask something else?
No, I there's so many questions we have on our
Right.
outline and we didn't get to that. The time has passed, but
Yeah,
I
just
appreciate.
like to the audience, like we want to keep these podcasts digestible, short bits that you can listen to in about 20, 25 minutes. And yeah, but we have so much more to talk about. And I hope that you guys can stick around for future episodes. We'll give you a lot of value in these podcasts. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you in the next one.
Yeah, and
Right.
I appreciate it. You guys are most welcome, and yeah, glad to be on the next one.
Awesome.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thanks.
Bye. Yeah, bye.